channel. So in today's video, I have invited Cameron Geller, who is currently pursuing his PhD from University of California. Without any delay, to start with today's video, let Cameron introduce himself, his background, and his journey from bachelor's to PhD. Cameron, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for having me on. I look forward to today's talk. So hello, everybody. My name is Cameron Geller, and I am currently a PhD student at University of California, Irvine. To briefly introduce my background, so I first began my college education with an undergraduate degree from California State University, Northridge, which is a university located about 35 minutes from Los Angeles. I obtained that degree in 2014 in biology with an emphasis in microbiology. And after obtaining my degree, I took 4 years away from school for a number of reasons. The simple reason was I wanted to decide my next step without just rushing back into school. And through that time, I decided that I wanted to do research and got accepted to do a master's program, again, at California State University, Northridge in 2018, and recently completed my master's program this past June when I defended my thesis and was fortunate to get accepted into a PhD program here at the University of California, Irvine, which I began just about a month ago, actually. So this is where I've been since, and it's been a great experience so far.
So, Cameron, what was the reason you chose this university?
Yeah, sure. So when I first decided that I wanted to get into research in the first place, sorry, my headphones are acting up. I'm just going to take them off. So when I first, during that 4-year period, when I was deciding my next step, I was actually considering medical school. I had gone through the process of taking the entrance exam. I had filled out applications. I was fortunate to receive an interview. But I had decided during that time, I also wanted to get research experience. And during this time, I really fell in love with research and decided to no longer do medical school and decided to join my research lab I was volunteering in at the time, which focused on studying breast cancer and how it spreads throughout the body. And so it was from this experience that I really enjoyed research as a whole and would later decide that I wanted to make a career out of it. And that was what led to my interest in wanting to continue onward in research as a PhD student. And since then, in my new lab, we now, instead of focusing on breast cancer, we focus on prostate cancer. In particular, just looking at the different ways, similar to my old labs, understanding how it spreads throughout the body and trying to find ways to help to mitigate its ability to carry on its cancer-like.
So, Cameron, what was the process of selection for this PhD program? Regarding the admission process, was there any interview or any requirements to get into this PhD program?
Yeah, sure. So my personal process for going through this, it may be different for everybody, but ultimately I had priorities that may not be priorities everyone else had. For me personally, I spent the last 20 years living in Southern California, and this is where my family is located, and my wife's family is located here as well. And so when selecting programs, I did apply broadly outside of California, but I knew at the end of the day that if I was fortunate to get accepted into a California school, I would want to be able to stay close by. And a big part of this was not only because my wife and I have our family nearby, but we have a 3-month-old daughter. And it was important for us to stay close to our family so that our daughter could have that relationship with her grandparents. And so that was a big factor when selecting certain PhD programs. And so fortunately, California has many wonderful programs for students to pursue in STEM. And so I was very fortunate that I had a lot of choices to pick from, as well as some of the programs I selected out of state. So the criterion outside of my personal reasons for selecting schools, first and foremost, the most important option for me, or the most important parameter for me to assess for selecting a school was the research. At the end of the day, and this is my own personal opinion, but it's one that I also strongly express when I share messages on LinkedIn, is that at the end of the day, I don't believe the school is what's going to make you successful. I believe it is the lab.
Yes.
It is the PI. It is the people that you work with that are going to make you successful, because an institution can be highly prestigious. It can bring you many connections. There's no doubt that going to a highly reputable institution unlocks many doors, but ultimately it's going to decide on how you proactively carry yourself throughout those programs that will make you successful. And so for me, it was about choosing a research program and a research lab where I knew I would thrive, because it was something I was really interested in, making sure that the students and the PI would be people who I could see myself working alongside for the next 4 to 6 years. So that was another important metric for me. Another one was, and it's funny too how you asked this, because most of my interviews would all ask the same thing, right? Why do you want to go here? Not that that's a surprising question, it's expected. But the other one for me, aside from my personal family matters, as I previously described, was going to be the cost of attending the university. Because at the end of the day, a lot of high-ranking universities are situated in very expensive cities, right? If it's Harvard in Boston, if it's UCLA in Los Angeles, these are two of the most expensive cities in the United States. And so at the end of the day, if your program is unable to provide you with a financial package that can help to support your living expenses, then it may not be the best opportunity for you. Because if you have to end up working one or multiple jobs to support yourself while you're in your program, and you're unable to dedicate your time and efforts towards the program you're trying to pursue in the first place, it may not be worth it to graduate from that certain institution or go to that institution if you can't even afford to dedicate your efforts towards the research.
Are you allowed, yeah, sorry to interrupt that. Sorry, are you allowed to do part-time job along with your PhD program?
So that's a good question. I'm going to say it varies. My particular program actually does not allow students to pursue part-time work. The reason for that is partly from what I mentioned. They want you to concentrate on your program, and I'm speaking as an American student. I can't say how the financial packages will vary for international students, but I do know that for students here, you do receive a generous financial package to ensure that your living expenses are met, so that you can ensure a maximal dedication to your program.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, just at the end of the day, make sure to do your research, because the websites that I researched were all very clear in outlining what you could expect from a financial aid package, whether you were a native US applicant, an international applicant, and if anything wasn't made clear, they had the resources you could contact to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, coming to this your PhD program details, what are the credits requirements? Is there any qualifier examination, then number of publications required, and the duration of PhD? Is there any specified duration of the PhD, or you can extend it?
So requirements for applying, same answer as before, it will vary from program to program. For instance, a popular standardized exam that students have had to take is the GRE exam. I apologize, I forgot what it stands for offhand. But the GRE exam is a standard exam that many students have to take as an entrance exam for graduate school. They also have the GRE subject exams, where you would need, in addition to taking the general exam, you would have to take a subject specific exam like chemistry, physics, whatever it is. But, and this goes back to the previous discussion we had, I deliberately chose programs that did not require a GRE, not because I didn't take it. I did take it and my score was okay. But I knew that I didn't want to have my GRE score factored into my potential to conduct research. And so I made the personal choice to select schools that didn't require it. But again, to go back to qualifications, some programs will require it and some will not. For instance, I am in the School of Cellular and Molecular Biosciences. And while some of the colleges within this umbrella program may require the GRE, some may not. So that part will vary. You will, of course, need a copy of your transcripts. I understand the process is a little different for international transcripts. There's no explicit grade point average requirement. You don't need to meet a minimum threshold on your transcript scores. I believe the TOEFL is required for international students. I apologize, I don't remember what that stands for either. But again, all of this is neatly outlined on the website for every program that I researched. You talked about publications. Publications are definitely not required. They can obviously help increase your competitiveness because it shows that you are not only able to conduct research, but we're able to publish it and have it recognized by a community of researchers. So it will definitely help. And I did have one publication co-author credit on a paper that was included in my applications, and also had a manuscript in preparation that was part of my applications. So I can say that that probably helped, but I wouldn't say that lacking publications is going to prevent you from getting accepted, because I knew of people and friends who got into programs that did not have publications. So I wouldn't say that it is explicitly required. But I will add to that, that if you are trying to apply to top tier universities like a Harvard or a Stanford, it's reasonable to expect that many applicants will be coming in with a lot of research experience and probably one or more publications. And you have to expect that applying to programs of that caliber. So the duration of the PhD program is usually about 4 to 6 years, but that can also vary. Usually the way it'll work for PhD programs here is that you start your first year so I'll talk about UC Irvine in particular. So we have what's called here the Cellular and Molecular Biosciences program. It's an umbrella program that consists of many smaller departments within that program. And usually in your first year as a PhD student, you'll take your classes and you'll rotate through 3 to 4 research labs. Each rotation is about, I think, 8 to 10 weeks. And this is a chance for you to experience the different types of labs that are on campus. And it's kind of like a buffet. You get to sample each lab. You get to see if you enjoy it or not. The PI gets a chance to see your work capabilities. And then by the end of your first year, it's kind of like for medical school when you match with a hospital and a hospital picks you to practice at their hospital. You get matched into a research lab based on your interest and if the PI is interested in you. And then from years 2 onward, you are dedicating yourself to that research lab until you complete your program. Now, myself personally, I had a different scenario where I actually am not doing rotations. I was directly admitted into a research lab that I will stay in for the entirety of my program. So I essentially am skipping that first year of rotations. However, direct admissions are a different process where I personally contacted a PI that I wanted to do work with. And after several conversations between her and myself, with her supervisors who manage the department and many other factors, I was able to get a direct admission and bypass everything. But so to answer your question of the duration of the program, there's many different ways it varies. But what is great about our program here is that they do guarantee your financial funding for up to 5 years.
Okay. So coming to this stipend, scholarship, and cost of living. So how is the cost of living there?
I can personally, but at the same time, I have a spouse who works, and I realize that not every graduate student is going to come with somebody with them, whether it's a friend, a family member, a partner. And so, but at the same time, I've met people who do not have a spouse or a significant other that they live with, and I've been told that they are able to comfortably manage their living expenses with the financial package. Now, of course, you can't be going out to eat dinner every night. You're not going to have, a nice car. You're not going to go on vacations every month. It's meant to cover your living expenses. And what's great too about UC Irvine is that I'm actually situated in the graduate housing located a mile away from my lab that actually brings down the cost of living compared to the
transportation cost will be reduced.
Exactly. So that helps significantly as well. So, and I know other universities try to do that as well because they realize that their graduate students, they don't make as much as faculty and staff. And so they try to help accommodate their stipend.
Yeah, then coming to your area of research, so what exactly you're working in, and so how is your research going on there?
Okay, so I won't give away too many details out of respect for the lab, but basically what we are doing in my research lab, as I mentioned previously, we study prostate cancer, as well as breast cancer, but the bulk of our work looks at prostate cancer. And in particular, we're trying to understand how prostate cancer cells are able to maintain survival when they are exposed to drug therapy treatments. And this is a popular topic in cancer called therapeutic resistance, where oftentimes when a patient has cancer, they're treated with a drug that has been clinically approved for treating patients. However, eventually the cancer is able to overcome the effects of the drug and persist and continue to grow. And so this is one of several projects our lab is focusing on. I mention this one because it is the project that I am working on, where we are trying to utilize a synthetic compound that our lab developed in order to better understand how it may be able to decrease the ability for the prostate cancer to become resistant to therapeutic treatments.
So Cameron, coming to your PhD life and all, how does your day start with some morning to evening, how you spend your time and all?
Right. So as I mentioned, I have a 3-month-old daughter, so every single day is different because I have to schedule my day around her. But a typical day for me is I will usually get into the lab around between 8 and 9 a.m. I'm a morning person, but there are a lot of people in our lab who don't come in until after 12 p.m., but they also stay much later. But I get in around 8 or 9 a.m. and I'm still trying to figure out what is best for me. I usually try to read some papers in the morning because I function best in the morning, and I know that papers can be very time consuming with all the content. So I like to read papers first, and then I'll usually do that for an hour or two, after which point I'll schedule in experiments for however long the experiment needs to be run. Of course, I have a lunch break, and then go back to doing more experiments. I usually find that I am done around anywhere between 4 and 5 p.m. But at the same time, it will probably change quite a bit because I'm not taking classes yet, and I haven't formally started my project yet, as I've only been here for a month. So I can see that changing quite a bit once the school year begins in September.
Yeah, Cameron, regarding this teaching assistantship or research assistantship, so how does it work in University of California?
So for the UC University of California system, they do require that all their students participate in a teaching assistantship program, or TA program. I actually received an email from our department a couple days ago, where in the fall, I'm going to have to attend several training workshops to ensure that I am familiar with the teaching styles that the school implements for us being instructors to undergraduates. So the requirements will vary. The simple reason to that is because there is a minimum amount of teaching that all graduate students need to do. I don't remember the number offhand. I want to say it's either 1 or 2 quarters for the quarter system, but some students decide to extend their TA responsibilities. Part of it could be they just really love teaching and they want to keep doing it. And the other part can be that if their lab, I couldn't mention this actually as a background. So when you get into the umbrella program here at UC Irvine, this umbrella program pays all of your expenses for the first year. They pay your tuition, your research stipend, your insurance, all those things. They pay that for the first year. But then after you get into a research lab, your PI's research funding pays for your salary and all of your expenses. And so I mention that because if for any reason your lab loses funding or no longer has enough funding to pay you, the department will make up what the PI is unable to provide by allowing you to work, as a TA or perhaps another job so that you can meet your living expenses. So using that background to answer this question, the TA assistantship position, you'll meet the minimum of how much you need to do. But if you work beyond that, it might be for reasons, as I previously mentioned, to help meet your living expenses.
Yeah, Cameron, coming to this future goal or scope, what you are aiming for after doing the PhD day?
Right. So my future goal at this time is I've always loved teaching. I've been doing it for over 10 years at various secondary schools within the United States. I've volunteered at programs for underserved students. So I've come to really love teaching and would love to do it professionally. And so after completing my PhD here, my goal is to enter into academia and become a PI and open my own research lab.
So So Cameron, I think we have come to an end. So if I have missed some asking some questions or some information is missing, you can just share that one. And the end question will be any advice you want to give for upcoming students and all.
Yeah, sure. And again, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed getting to talk today. I would say the most important piece of advice, just really make sure this is what you want. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but at the end of the day, when you're filling out your application, and I recently shared something on LinkedIn that I want to mention here, is that focus your efforts on your personal statement, right? The part of your application where you talk about yourself. I recommend that you do that before you submit anything else, because if you take the time to think over your personal statement and you try to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? You may realize that in thinking over your reasons, you don't actually want to do a PhD. Maybe you're doing it for reasons beyond yourself. Maybe someone is pressuring you to do it, or something is pressuring you to do it, and you really don't want to do it. And if you really don't want to do this, live this lifestyle, because like I said, you know, depending on where you go, you'll have money to pay for your living expenses, but you're making a lot less than someone who's probably working at a fast food restaurant. You're not making a lot of money. And so you can't do this for money. You have to do it because it's your passion. And so that later on, you'll get a job that will make more money, but that's not going to happen for a while. And so think it over in your personal statement. If you realize that you can't find a reason to do it, you've saved yourself 4 to 6 years of work, because you're not going to be happy.
Yeah,
But
I
at the
agree with
same
you.
time, thinking over carefully why you want to do it and realizing you absolutely want to do it is going to show these programs why you deserve a spot more than anybody else. And for that reason, you'll be that much more prepared during interviews, because I can tell you, out of every PI that I interviewed with, they all really were looking for that passion. And the PI that I currently work with, when I asked her, you know, why were you willing to accept me into your lab without ever seeing me hold any type of instrument? And she said it was because I saw how passionate you were. So you really got to make sure that you can show people how excited you are about this, because if you really aren't excited about it, they're going to give your spot to somebody else, because there's not a lot of spots in these programs. They're extremely competitive because they're giving you a lot of money to do this. And they're only going to give it to people who they feel are really, really excited to be here and aren't just doing it because, you know, for whatever reason, they just don't know what else they want to do. So all of that to say, just really make sure you know why you're doing this and take the time to come up with a good response.
I think, do you want to share any further information? You can share it, or I can just conclude it.
If anyone's welcome to, I put a lot of posts every day, every other day on LinkedIn with a lot of similar messages to today. You're more than welcome to join. I accept anybody. I really, you know, it's not about the numbers for me, but if anybody enjoys reading what I post, I'm happy to add you so you can look at it. I made a video on my LinkedIn profile that highlights a lot of the things that were discussed today that you're welcome to look at as many times as you want. And again, just thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So guys, this is the end of our video today. So if you like this video, kindly subscribe to this channel to get more information related to this PhD life and higher study education across the world. So thank you, Cameron, for joining me today. So it was great talking with you.